Welcome to this video tutorial with Virtual Racing School for the Blogpan series on iRacing. This week we visit Mazda Raceway Laguna Seca, where I'll be looking at a lap driven by Rens Broekman in the Ferrari 488 GT3, for which he's driven in default late afternoon weather to match the official series. I'll play the lap in full view first before then going into further analysis. Okay, so that was a 1 minute 20.404. So as ever then, starting from the list of available data packs on the website, we're going to choose the Ferrari GT3 data pack as put together by Rens Broekman, and we're going to choose week 5. This will load up the session details, where of course you can download the lap files to compare your driving in sim against Rens, the replay, and of course the race setup. Well, we're just going to click on Learn Track, which will open up the driving analyzer, and it will start to play the lap through. I'm just going to pause it and show you what we can see. So you've got a steering angle input trace, speed of the car as well, brake and throttle inputs, and some live driving inputs as well at the bottom left. So I'm just also going to just mute it and slow it to half speed and then play it through. Before I press play though, in terms of how you want to cross the start finish line, you want to hug the inside pit wall to the left here. That's going to be a shorter distance towards turn 1, and keep hugging the cones until this is actually turn 1 here, but the real breaking point is for turn 2. So gradually bring the car back over to the right hand edge of the track and look for your breaking point, which is going to be provided by these markers. So you've got number 4 there. Rens is going to be braking just before the 4 marker, and notice he's got the car all the way over to the right hand edge of the circuit here. Now it's a fairly heavy braking zone, but it is downhill, so you do need to be careful. And we see that Rens reaches a peak brake pressure of 60 or 70%. Obviously this car has ABS, but don't overdo it. If you're too reliant on the ABS, then you will overheat the tyres regardless. And then as he starts to turn in fairly late, you can see here that he's bleeding off the brakes nicely as he's progressively increasing the steering angle, and he's looking for the first of the 2 apexes in this Andretti hairpin. So I'll just take it to cockpit view. So you want to really be aiming for this anti-cut curb. You want to get as close to that as possible without making contact with it, all the way down into second gear. And the thing is here, you don't want to be too fast in between these 2 apexes. So you want to keep a little bit of brake pressure on all the way through. Just allow the car to run out a little bit, not too far. And the key thing is you want to keep the car turning and rotating so that you can get back on the power and still make it back to that second apex. So we can see here that Rens picks up the throttle just before he reaches the second apex here, which is lined up for really nicely. And we can see here that he's on the throttle really quite aggressively, straight from from 0 basically, so that allows him to be right on the edge of traction immediately, which again helps eliminate any understeer, but he doesn't rush to full throttle, so you can still be patient and there is still an opportunity for the car to get a little bit unsettled, a little bit unstable. So if you've left a tiny bit of throttle in reserve, then that just allows a little bit more feeling in your foot to make a correction and lift off if necessary. So we can see through the exit using all of the track, listening out for this rumble strip here on the exit, and then diagonal across the track towards the number 2 marker here for looking for your apex into what is turn 3. Just play it through, much gentler braking zone into here before the 2 marker. Don't want to brake too late into this one because you want to start turning in basically as soon as you start braking because of the angle at which you approach the corner. And then you can just run along the rumble strip on the outside on the entry whilst still braking. We can see that Rens is holding about 10 to 20% of brake pressure here, which just eliminates any entry understeer. Again, aiming for this anti-cut curb. Just show you there. Does actually just clip it there, but gets away with it. It's a little bit more forgiving here compared to some of the other corners. And he's picked up the throttle just before he's apexed again, and a little bit more patient this time as well through the exit. Doesn't want to rush to full throttle. The car is quite heavily loaded under power here, and it's very easy to oversteer through the exit. Allow the car to track out on this rumble strip again through the exit. Jink to the right briefly before then moving back over to the left to set yourself up for turn 4. This is a much faster corner, so really gentle on the brakes here. I'll just go back to when he does brake. It's going to be again at the 2 marker, so he's positioned the car on the rumble strip as he enters this one, and you want to turn in quite early here. It's quite deceptive. It's very easy to run wide, so you want to turn in fairly early, and you want to be on the brakes throughout the whole corner. So the car tends to understeer through here, so you really want to be trail braking all the way through the entry phase in order to try and eliminate that understeer. And again, getting close to the anti-cut curb there, but avoiding actually making contact with it. I'm just going to stay to chase view all the way through the exit because Rens does drop a wheel on the sand, on the dirt through the exit, hence the slight lift when he felt that the car was just starting to run wide. Now you can actually get away with that here as long as you've got the car nice and straight, but we can actually see a major correction through counter steer in the steering, visible in the steering trace here. So Rens was fortunate to get away with that, but I don't think he was able to keep up his forward momentum, so it didn't really cost him time. And then bringing the car over to the right hand edge of the circuit once again, under the gantry or the bridge, and braking just before the 3 marker here. Again, listening for the rumble strip on entry. You don't want to be too wide, but you want to open up the corner as much as possible, so a good reference is to listen out for that rumble strip as you brake. Braking quite firmly initially and then bleeding off as he turns in. Now this is actually a fairly early turn-in compared to some of the other corners because it's quite heavily banked or cambered, especially at the apex into here. So you don't want to avoid the opportunity to get in there nice and tight and use that camber to your advantage. You want to get in there nice and early and really utilize it. So he's really close to the anti-cut curb once again, picks up the throttle very gently and carefully this time, because he's really carrying a decent amount of mid-corner speed here, so he can't afford to overdo it. And also the car tends to go light through the exit as the banking of the track levels out. You tend to lose a little bit of grip as you come out of this corner, so just be aware of that. Hence the patience on the throttle, and again using all of the track through the exit as well. So up towards arguably the most difficult corner on the whole circuit, even more challenging than the corkscrew in my opinion, is turn 6. Now it's completely blind on approach. You're going to have to use this bridge overhead as a reference to prepare for the corner. So Rens will start braking just before then. He's going to brake quite gently, and then he's going to turn in just at the 2 marker and hope that he's got it right, because you don't really know until you're in the corner, and then there's nothing that you can really do about it. So it's very much about timing and finding a good rhythm. So I'm just going to pause it as Rens turns in here. So that was just on the 2 marker. He's turning in from the rumble strip again on the entry. You don't want to turn in too late and you don't want to turn in too early. And we can see that Rens wasn't too aggressive on the brakes. You can't afford to brake too hard, it's a fast corner, but he's just easing off the brake, trail braking all the way into the apex so that he doesn't run wide. And the worst thing that you can do is really attack this corner, so you just want to be nice and careful and build up to it lap after lap. So we'll play it through, picks up the throttle at the apex very aggressively, which he'll be able to feel in terms of his entry speed, how aggressive he can afford to be on the throttle. He's got his entry really nice here, which is why he's able to really commit there. But still, a slight bit of hesitation through the exit, because as it turns out, he's just starting to run slightly wide, and we'll play it through. He does actually drop a wheel onto the dirt there, but because it's both wheels, he's able to keep the car nice and straight and keep good momentum and gets away with it. And obviously you want good exit momentum up the hill here as you approach the corkscrew. You want to listen out for this rumble strip on the left, which will set yourself up nicely on approach for braking. Now there was a painted white line on the circuit there. Rens will have broke just after that point. Don't want to brake too late here. You can afford to brake quite hard initially, not too hard because you're still turning on entry, but then as the circuit crests and the car goes light over the top, where again you want to be running this rumble strip on the right hand side, you can see that Rens is visibly decreasing the brake pressure before then getting back on the brakes a bit harder before eventually turning in at around the 2 marker. Now it's deceptive. The track obviously falls away even before it really falls away through the exit. It falls away on the entry. It's actually a little bit cambered at the apex. You want to take advantage of that curb. You want to get up onto that curb on the inside, down into second gear for best rotation, and then this is your reference for the exit. This tree with it's got a crooked trunk, and you want to be picking up the throttle as you apex, looking for that tree, which will set up your exit line down the hill. And then hopefully as the exit comes into view, you'll be positioned correctly for this curb at the bottom. As we can see that Rens is perfectly positioned here, and as a result is able to pick up to full throttle as the car compresses at the bottom of the hill. He then brings the car back over his right hand side, down the hill, not necessarily all the way over to the right. He's left the car's width. It can be very easy to drop a wheel onto the rumble strip here, and then the car really falls away and you lose grip. So it's actually best to avoid running too wide here on entry, and also because the car tends to understeer down the hill. The circuit kind of falls away. There's plenty of grip here, but the car tends to be front limited. So in order to sort of combat that, we again see Rens trail braking down through the entry phase. A little bit of understeer there, but has enough grip to pick up the apex where he's on the throttle, again leaving a small margin of error, and then through the exit he's just feathering the throttle because the car goes a little bit light as the circuit once again falls away. And listening out for that rumble strip through the exit. You don't want to run too wide here because you don't want to compromise your entry into the next right-hander, which is again is very tricky, and you want to get in nice and early, but you want to have a wide approach. So braking before the 2 marker here, getting up close to this rumble strip on entry, on the brakes turning in at the same time. The car can get a little bit rotatey or a little bit oversteery here on the brakes, so just be aware of that. In fact, we see that Rens decreases the brake pressure just to stabilize the car, but doesn't let go of the brakes completely, so that's excellent brake control. Just sets the car up nicely into the apex, down into 3rd gear, and again really close to this anti-cut curb. This is vicious if you hit this one, so be aware of that and be prepared to open the steering if you have to. And then through the exit, as he apexes, he's hard on the throttle, lots of commitment here because he knows the car is going to stick with his line to the apex, and bring the car over to the right hand side, not too aggressively, just nice and smoothly, to prepare himself for the final braking zone into the last corner, where once again he's going to be braking just before the 2 marker. This is one of the, if not the hardest braking zone on the whole circuit. A fairly standard traditional 90-degree left-hand corner, so you can afford to take it quite hard on the brakes. Don't turn in too early. You want a nice exit, so you want to slow the car down enough on entry, get the car turned in and rotated. We can see again he's trail braking as he's turning in, and then hard on the throttle as he apexes. Again, another corner where you want to get as close to that anti-cut curb as possible. A slight bit of feathering modulation on the throttle as he's waiting for the car to settle. We are traction limited through the exit of this corner. Despite the traction control, you don't want to rely on that. And then straighten the car as quickly as possible. Avoid this AstroTurf if you can, because it is slippery and will compromise your exit speed. And then just keep the car nice and straight. Once again, bring the car gradually over to the pit wall to complete the lap. You can find all setups, replays and telemetry for your own use and analysis on virtualracingscore.com, where you can also book coaching including group classes with world champions from the likes of Koanda Simsport. Good luck for this week and feel free to post any questions or comments below. Thanks for watching.